Have you seen the news that cards with artworks extending beyond the art frames are coming? This will also be available for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. Details coming soon. A very cryptic message that sends huge news into the Yu-Gi-Oh! Atmosphere, and it's something that has sent the community into quite an uproar. Many in the public forum are excited, but many others are also skeptics. Is this the right way to fix Yu-Gi-Oh? In this video, I'm going to break down what I think the news means, address the concerns skeptics have, and overall talk about the long-term life that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has and how this full arts will impact the game. Like with all my discussion videos, I want this place to be a forum of ideas. Anyone who disagrees with me is well within their full right to do so. I always ask that you show each other respect. This is a game after all, and we are all here to have fun. Now that said, if you enjoy these discussion videos, then please make sure to let me know by liking and subscribing to see all future controversies, as well as comment any hot topics that you think I should cover as well. Now, before we get into the bulk of the discussion, two things I want to address first. Firstly, Yu-Gi-Oh! As of late has been in a bit of a crisis mode. While many subjective opinions can be made to the state of the game, and some of them are harder to measure, like the health of a format, like Master Duel, and I've talked about that as well. It is undeniable, though, that Yu-Gi-Oh!'s share of the trading card game market has slipped. It's been diminishing, and I've already touched upon this quite a bit in a previous video. So obviously that directly correlates to the news today, which is based in the retail sphere. And I'll be talking about how that announcement aims to fix that problem and how it may fall short or accomplish those things. And then secondly, you guys know me as a pro Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, as well as, I guess by now, a content creator. But those aren't the only two niches within this community that I fill. I'm also an avid collector, with many cool pieces that I've acquired over my decades of playing the game. But then also, I am a vendor, someone who works very close with retail in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I have a lot of experience in selling cards, buying cards, and working with many different either wholesale distributors as well as card stores, LGSs. I fill essentially every niche in the community besides anime fan, and hopefully that can give you several different perspectives to think from as we approach this Herculean problem that Yu-Gi-Oh! Faces. But okay, now we have that out of the way, let's talk about what Konami is aiming to do. The modern meta, if you will, for TCG products is to have each set contain rare chase cards. Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't new to this concept though. The original secret rares were hard to get, ghost rares, and latest Starlight rares, ultimate rares, collective rares, quarter century rares. There's been chase cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Products for a long time. These were all attempts to simulate this sort of thing that alt-arts are aiming to do now. It's creating that chase in games. And other games, though, you'll see full arts, alternate arts, different holographic patterning, which is mostly what Yu-Gi-Oh! Has. The point being, there's a far bigger diversity of what you can do with making cards unique that Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't fully take advantage of. The idea here is rather simple, in that it's creating more cards for people to collect, increases demands, and thus grows the game. So in this case, it'd be growing Yu-Gi-Oh! The key phrase here being increased demand. The Yu-Gi-Oh! To recover and to grow, it's this single and simple economic element that needs to be focused on. For a long time, the different types of chase cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Paled in comparison and quantity to that of its biggest competitor, Pokemon. Pokemon has almost every type of unique chase card that I mentioned before, and that offers a huge amount of collectability to the game that isn't present in the same way in Yu-Gi-Oh! And in recent years, Pokemon has flourished as the game and cards grow in popularity, with each set seeming to outsell the last. And this is in spite of the fact that many Pokemon sets provide minimal impact to the actual metagame, and that the card game marketplace has become saturated by an influx of competitors, like Lorcana, One Piece, Riftbound coming soon. The Star Wars trading card game is also somewhat new, Dragon Ball, many other Bandai games, Union Arena. There's a lot, and I probably missed a few new ones that are relevant too. Yu-Gi-Oh! By contrast has not grown in the same way, with product success being inextricably linked to the product's meta relevance. And the competing IPs that I mentioned earlier are making noticeable impacts within the community as players leave and people buy less products. So while it may be late, the push here from Konami is to mirror the Pokemon approach and provide as many avenues into collectability as possible. There are some problems with just simplifying it in this way. So let's get this out of the way real quick. Yu-Gi-Oh is not Pokemon. The Pokemon products model may be partially responsible for its recent success, but it is far from the sole contributor. The IP of Pokemon dwarfs Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's an undeniable barrier for Yu-Gi-Oh to replicate the success that Pokemon has. It's a big reason why some other newer card games have taken sizable chunks of Yu-Gi-Oh's market share. Brands like Disney and One Piece massively outsize Yu-Gi-Oh, and there's not much we can do about that. So it's hard to say how more closely mirroring Pokemon's model would affect the game. The other big problem that comes with full arts is with their value. Now, oftentimes, for cards to be chased and grow the brand in the way Konami intends also means having the chase cards grow in value, monetary value. We'll talk about the issues associated with that shortly, but firstly, it's important to note that this has existed within Yu-Gi-Oh before. As I mentioned, premium rarities in Yu-Gi-Oh have been around for quite a while, and at times have been desirable. In the first era of Starlight Rares, around 2019 into COVID, Starlight Rares were hard to obtain, expensive, and sought after, with even the worst Starlight Rares being worth quite a bit of money. And I think, if I recall, it was like $50 at the cheapest for the ones that had zero meta relevance. It is important to note, though, that the collectible industry in general boomed in this period, and these two elements combined are what led to the all-time highs in the Yu-Gi-Oh market. But since then, Starlights have fallen from grandeur. They've returned to circulation recently, only a few months ago, and the most recent set with Starlights includes printing as low as $8. That's Doom Dimension, that's a core set. Within the last month, in the Megatins, many are as low as 25 cents. This sort of thing has happened with other premium rarities too, with cheap ghost rares, quarter centuries, ultimate rares, and collector rares being a big one too. So who's to say that even if alternate arts see some initial success, that they'll be a pillar for Yu-Gi-Oh to rely upon for the short term? This is where the execution from Konami matters quite a bit. There are some criticism for Konami's handling of Starlights that could explain their downfall. One issue plaguing collectibles in Yu-Gi-Oh is that cards of the same rarity don't have the same rarity. Okay, I know that sounds stupid, but let me rephrase that. Upon the Starlight release, they had a pull rate of 1 every 25 boxes. So that means you have to open up 2 cases and then 1 extra box just to get a single Starlight rare. Now they appear very frequently in side sets, with tins having 1 per pack, and even the newest core sets, which would have been the same sort of thing as what came out 6 years ago, they're 1 in every 3 or 4 boxes. That is significantly easier to get than they were in the past. So just because a card is of the same rarity in Konami standards doesn't mean it's the same level of scarcity. This means that the prestige of a Starlight rare is watered down, and people looking to collect have a lessened desire to collect the new ones. Not all special. Furthermore, a larger number of cards are printed in Starlight Rare, including many which are frankly unworthy of a premium print. I'm sure maybe a total of 1 person watching this video was genuinely excited to see that DD Designator was being given a Starlight Rare print in the Megatins. And it's not the only example. New cards also have this problem. They make 25 or 24 new cards for each core set, a Starlight Rare now, and many of those are undeserving. And that's how you reach cards worth only $8 for something that is really hard to get. But this problem aside, printing the same cards in new rarities creates competition within Yu-Gi-Oh's own marketplace. So while you want a high rarity effect veiler, you now have the choice of a Starlight rare, a quarter century rare, an ultimate rare, maybe a prismatic collector rare, maybe the YCS stamped version, maybe the alternate art QCR, and maybe they'll come out with more new ones in the future. And these cards kind of fight amongst themselves in terms of desirability. And when more and more of these cards exist and are available to people, then they all go down in value as there's overall less demand. The demand doesn't just strictly increase for each new print of a card. And in this way, it's different than Pokemon. Cards like Charizard, and Blue Eyes for that matter as well does have this too, have a collectability, not just for meta's sake. Cards for a meta's sake are limited to 3 total, or a playset. And that means that there is competition for cards that are directly high rarity for meta's sake. You need cards that are collectible for collectible sake. Because when a new Charizard or Blue Eyes comes out, people are happy to buy the collection, even if they already have enough to complete their deck. My Blue Eyes collection, for example, probably has like 10 different Blue Eyes in it. I know I'm not alone there. Many others have way more blue eyes than myself. That's because I'm not looking for blue eyes to put on my deck. In fact, I play blue eyes infrequently. It's for collection's sake. And that's why those blue eyes don't compete with themselves in value the same way. But the new high rarity printings of a card also affect the speculative market. People oftentimes buy these expensive cards for collectability and to play, but also as a way to invest money, or rather, if it's not investing, at least they're not burning the money, right? Because Yu-Gi-Oh is not a consumable. These are still goods that can be resold at a later time. But when you know that your max rarity print of an effect failure may receive a new max rarity, or at least another chase rarity, it deters people from buying the current chase cards, especially when the new rarity can be so similar to an existing one, like Starlights and Quarter Centuries, which I think really shouldn't have looked so similar. It wasn't the best choice in my opinion. And then obviously, as the cards and chase cards in the sets as they come out goes down, it brings down the market altogether. And right, the whole point is to push it up. For what it's worth, a full art card and alternate art cards are far more distinct than some rarities. So this problem is lessened to a degree, but the problem does still exist. And it's also worth noting that even within Pokemon, the mass amounts of premium rarities have produced an ecosystem that also makes not every card valuable. I know many secret illusion rares, or illustration rares, sorry, the SIRs, are not worth a whole lot, upon release especially, which is the important one, because while cards can appreciate over time, we need cards that are valuable immediately so that the immediate product is good for the local game stores. All of these factors are of large concern, and it's hard to know if Konami's plan to increase collectability will work. And we still don't have the full picture. Get it? Full art, full picture? I'm stupid, ignore me. We don't know how easy these cards will be to get. They could be one per pack, one per box. It could be exclusive to certain sets. They could be promos only. This will all depend how they impact collectability and sets. We don't know how unique they'll look and which cards will be given unique printings. Because again, right, if it's meta cards receiving these printings, it's less collectible than something that is like a Blue Eyes. But also, Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have the same catalog of collectible cards that other games do. While there are some, it's still smaller. But also how they'll look. And this is important because we do have full art cards technically within Yu-Gi-Oh. We have the Rush Duel cards, MoCG. And I guess you can't really call them full art, but there are many cards that are more, the text lives in harmony with the artwork, and it's the border is broken, which may be what they're going for here. Those cards maybe aren't good enough. Maybe they are, who knows? We don't see them in TCG. Also, we don't even see them in North America. It's Japanese only. Will they, however, be full arts with no text on them, like some other card games have? Something that I'd like to see, especially with the old cards, is them to mess with the card design in a way that's nostalgic, right? So what they could do is, in the show where you have like the small text box there, and it's not really a text box, it's just like the symbol. Even if it's not legal for play, again, the point is to push collectability, not playability, right? And you can still play it with friends. Or maybe you take on the old OCG text box where it's, again, smaller, but then you have like the small little bubble box with the attack stats kind of enlarged. I think that approach could be cool and flexible too. While there is a limited number of cards that would really apply for this formatting, there are enough ideas and enough cards that you could make it, if you stretch it out over time, cool chases to make sets fun to open and fun to collect. But for now, we are just waiting to see more news. Either way though, at the surface level, this does give some hope that Yu-Gi-Oh can recover from what has been a rather pitiful year. Now, beyond that analysis, I know that the community did have some other kind of concerns regarding this all that I wanted to take a look at. Beyond the intricacies of Konami's intentions and how they may play out, the Yu-Gi-Oh community has made several comments that are important to address. So the by far biggest problem that I see people kind of have is that they're scared of scalpers entering the community in the same way that has in other games like Lorcana, One Piece, Pokemon, obviously. And this one is kind of true, right? Because if we're creating value within a game, that also means it becomes financial incentive now for people to play the market. However, it is important to note that Yu-Gi-Oh is different than these other card games in some ways. For one, how you order a product in Yu-Gi-Oh is not the same as Pokemon. In Pokemon and many other card games, you get an allocation of product assigned to you by a distributor. So local game stores are oftentimes limited in the number of boxes and cases they can receive. In Yu-Gi-Oh, it's prints to order. So what that means is Yu-Gi-Oh, you can place an order for 100 cases, you will get 100 cases. That doesn't happen in other card games. What that means is as demand rises in these other games, supply doesn't, or not at the fast enough pace, and then cards scale in price way faster than they realistically should. Yu-Gi-Oh can't have that problem because products will be ordered to meet demand. They should never reach prices crazy high unless there's been a lack of foresight from game stores and there becomes a scarcity issue due to under ordering, and that would not be allocation problems. But even beyond this, it's important to recognize that these card games and markets and Yu-Gi-Oh, they're an ecosystem, right? And there are different places within the ecosystem. It's important to note that you aren't going to fill every single spot in a community, right? And they all serve a purpose. You may not like that vendors make money. You may not like scalpers. And while they can be problematic in some ways, they're also important for making sure that Konami has a sustainable way of keeping the game alive, that the game stores are sustainable so they can keep distributing cards. These are all still important. It's not just the players that matter. Of course, they do. And with that, scalping, if it relies to the playability of the game, is a huge problem. And this is what we've seen in games like Lorcana. But with the demand being increased for collectability's sake, and cards that are meta relevant being kept in low rarities, and this is important, they have to be kept in low rarities, it means that acquiring the cards to play should remain rather easy. Pokemon is a rather simple example to this, because the extra demand is being created by collectability, not by playing. Most cards in most meta decks, at least at the base level, remain fairly accessible as well as fairly affordable. And while scalping does exist, they're not focused on the playability side. And I know this may still come as disheartening to people that are collectors in the community, but collectability and collecting are financially driven, I guess, hobbies in the first place, right? And if for them to be expensive fuels the rest of the game, I think that's fine. I think that's where the game probably should be, because that's kind of just how collecting works. As long as the scalping raises the market up and only affects that one aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't think it's that much of a problem. Because again, the actual product itself will remain somewhat accessible. Even if boxes go up, the singles, the playable cards, should stay low enough that if you want to just go on TCG Player and buy cards, or Tier 0, shout out to my sponsor, you can do it there, and it won't break the bank. Now, I know that comment in particular is going to receive a lot of flack, so I'm curious to you guys' opinions on that. I've always been of the opinion that there's a place for all those in the community, and collectors will have to pay money to collect, and I think that's okay. Not every collector who's on a budget should be able to have every collectible card. But still, there are other problems that the community has brought up. And one of them that is important is the slippery slope of printing more abstract cards. And now this is going to be divisive because it is opinionated. I would not want to end up where Magic is right now, and that is their way of injecting money into the game is to do these collaborations, in which their alternate arts are just completely different brands. Magic isn't resting and relying upon itself right now. Its identity has become that of a collaborator like Fortnite, with games like, or not games even, Deadpool cards, Spider-Man cards, SpongeBob cards. It's a little ridiculous. And while a collab or two could be cool, like I thought the Mario Pikachu was super sick as a one-time thing, because they're also tied together by brands. At a certain point, it becomes no longer special. It becomes saturated. It also becomes corny. That corny thing is a big thing that people are worried about too. This is a fair concern. If Konami uses this brand new thing as a cash injection, and then looks for the next quick cash injection by selling out to some other niche community or some other new hot fad, then yeah, it could become a problem, because eventually you stop supporting the loyal players of the game, and you're only really bringing in a random few new people who care about one thing and then don't care about the rest of the game. At least that's how Magic looks to me as an outsider. I could be wrong. This is something that is more nuanced, right? And people who play Magic can maybe give me their takes on this. And I know even within the community, this has been a divisive topic. But I don't want to end up in that spot where my Blue Eyes White Dragon works with the Krabby Patty.
Patrick, that's a Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Yes.
Now, this is a real concern, but it's also a little baseless at the moment because Konami, more than any other company, has been more resistant to change and experimenting than almost anything else. I think for it to happen, you need every other IP to do the same thing, and Konami would begrudgingly kind of follow suit. This ultimately is in Konami's hands, but I don't think this will be a problem. On that topic, it's like one of the other biggest problems people have. Konami is late. Boy, I should have done this 20 years ago. I mean, yeah, this kind of goes into what I was saying, where Konami doesn't like to copy the ideas of other games. They don't like to embrace market trends, like to do their own thing. They're slow to change. They don't like change. However, addressing this concern, yeah, what do you want me to do about it? This is like a terrible fallacy to say that because they were late, they shouldn't do it. If something is good, even if it's late, just be happy it's happening and move on. I'm not going to touch on this one longer. This is a stupid complaint that people are having. And then the last kind of concern, it does relate kind of back to the abstract cards issue, is that the cards will just look bad, but also be saturated by cards being unworthy of alt art prints. So this relates to what I was talking about before, right? Where a card like DD Designator, for example, does not need to exist in a full art sort of setting. It is fine in its dismal original print, a common reprint for accessibility, and that's all. So yeah, if the market becomes saturated by a large variety and a large number of full arts, like once per pack, yeah, this loses any sort of luster it is sort of proposing to accomplish. The market will not recover in the way that Konami and myself is hoping for. And while it can be easy to shit on Konami for many of the choices that I disagree with over the past years and many things that have seemed to be disastrous, I want to end things on a positive note. It's clear Konami has noticed things have been bad because they've been making changes and they don't usually do that. But that also means we should appreciate that the changes that are happening, because they do happen over time, right? Konami's a big company with bureaucracy and things need time to be set into motion and to be set in place. Pricing has changed, time rules have changed, product structure has changed, reprint accessibility has changed, and now full arts are coming. They're trying things. Genesis formatting system as well as a new way to balance Yu-Gi-Oh!, new methods to play alternate formats. Konami has woken up, and you can see that there are a tremendous amount of new things that over the past few years have come into Konami. Konami cares, and while we may never reach the heights of Pokemon, our brands just can't, and I doubt that we'll be able to increase the demand in that manner. I think Konami is trying and looking at many different ways to improve. So I'm excited to see what the future holds for Yu-Gi-Oh!, both with full arts as well as within other ways Konami is addressing things. I have many problems and I won't shy away from addressing them, but also because that helps us as a community and Konami move forward to reach greener pastures. Let me know what you guys think. This news does excite me. I'm overall happy, even if there are skepticisms and concerns and reservations. But let me know what you guys think about all of this. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.